I'm going to give everyone a minute to hop in. Thank you for those of you who answered where you're from. It's always interesting to see. So, if you want to let me know where you're coming from, I would love to see that. If you have something you're struggling with and you're wondering, is it related to insulin resistance? I would like to know that. Maybe I can give you a short answer. Maybe I need to go do some research to help answer that question because I am not the scientist Dr. Bickman is. I just take their information and get it out to the masses. So I talk about insulin resistance. Sorry, there's so much going on in this house today. They're doing the lawns outside. But insulin resistance is said to be 90 the cause of 95 cause or linked to 95% of the diseases and disorders we suffer with today. Lifestyle is causing us to be sick. Lifestyle means how much we sleep, the air we breathe, the people we're around, but also the food we're eating. All of those things, the immense amount of stresses we have today, the the electronics we're plugged into, the lack of sleep that we're getting because of all of that. And it all is leading into insulin resistance. And insulin resistance, physiologically, biologically, is causing us to be sick in a number of ways. But what is insulin resistance? I'm going to answer a really quick question. It's not a really quick question, but yesterday somebody asked me about overactive sweating, and I just called it excessive sweating. Um, and so we're going to get to that answer in a minute because, yes, it is linked to insulin resistance, and it's important to understand what's happening because as people learn, they're like, oh my gosh, I would have never known. And they're starting to get better. But some people are just like, how could this be the cause of almost everything that we're dealing with? Well, we're going to dive into that. So, insulin resistance, because a number of people still are learning about insulin resistance, and maybe you have never been told, we're going to break it down really simply. And it is the precursor, uh, spoiler alert, it is the precursor to diabetes. So when people tell me I don't have diabetes, this isn't my problem, wrong, wrong, wrong. It still could be your problem. Very highly likely that it's your problem. Insulin resistance doesn't show up as diabetes for many times 10 or 20 years after it started showing up in the person. And yet we're not testing for insulin resistance, we're only testing for diabetes. So right now I'm going to break down insulin resistance, how and when it makes that tipping point to become diabetes, so that you can understand this is all one big chain just worsening as time goes on because of the lifestyle we have. Um, yeah, so I'm not sure how to say your name. Terp is something. Oh, that's turf. Terp. Okay. It says my naturopathic doctor had me cut out sugar, including fruits, no grains, and I do take blood sugar supplements, Cellcore GCO. I haven't seen that one. Um, it's Michael. Thank you, Michael. So I agree with most of that. What I'm going to talk about this morning is another way that we can help address our insulin resistance and our blood sugars with natural food products by putting back in what's been stripped out of our food. We all know our food has changed. I'm not going to even play anymore. We all know that our food has changed and is not as nutritious as it used to be for a number of reasons. But let's get back to insulin resistance. Michael, though, I'm tracking what she's telling you. Absolutely. Blood glucose dropped from 152 to 102 in 8 weeks. So we can have the same similar thing here without medications and whatnot, just with these two real food products that we're putting back in. So insulin resistance, good morning, Ro, goes a little like this. We're having this food that's not necessarily healthy for us. I'm going to pause a second because I want to tell a little story. Um, I'm getting ready to go see my mom. We all know this. So I was asking her about food, and she's elderly, so she gets some what she calls commodities still. So she was asking me about cereal, and as she's listing off all the food that they gave her, I'm like, Mom, I mean, we all have some junk in our lives, but like expecting our kids to live on cereal for breakfast. Why are we having such problems with diabetes, it's stuff like that. When you wake up and you give yourself something that's going to spike your blood sugar immediately, and this is what we're doing to our kids, and then on top of cereal, we add in fruit juice and all of that, um, we're getting sick. And I love intermittent fasting too. So it's like this. We have all of these foods, like this cereals and these packaged foods that mom is in her best efforts to help her family wanting to pass off to us, and I'm not wanting it. Um, it's raising our blood sugar. So we have this food that's stripped of fibers, highly focused on carbohydrates and starches, and our bodies just aren't meant for that. There's a reason why carnivore is getting so big, and I'm not saying that I'm telling anyone to go carnivore, but because protein can break down into some glucose in your system. Protein also gives you building blocks, but the other way around, that cereal and fakey milk or 1% milk and fruit juice for breakfast is doing nothing but spiking your insulin, spiking your blood sugars first, and then spiking your insulin and causing a problem. So our blood sugars are constantly being spiked. And then we're listening to people who are telling us eat every 2 hours to keep your hunger under control. No, eat protein to keep your hunger under control. Add some fats back in to keep your hunger under control. Then, so bad foods, packaged foods, processed foods, we're eating too often, and now we're spiking our glucose consistently. Think about this. Every time, with the exception of a couple of things that I'm going to talk about later, every time you open your mouth to put food in, you're potentially spiking your glucose. Now, when that happens, your blood can only hold 1 teaspoon of glucose at a time, and then it's going to start to panic, and it's going to start to say, hey, we need something to deal with all of this. And so it cues the pancreas, an organ that's producing several hormones, not just insulin, but that pancreas now starts producing more insulin because insulin is carrying, good morning, Melba, that energy that you just opened your mouth and ate to the cells of your body, and every cell of your body needs insulin. So that sounds like a great thing, right? Well, probably in the short term it is. But what's happening is we're doing this day in, day out, constantly, constantly, constantly. And that is causing us to have these elevated blood sugar levels consistently, which means elevated insulin levels consistently. That elevation of those insulin levels consistently is hypoglycemia or hyperglycemia or hyperinsulinemia. And from there, when the body senses that there's this insulin out all the time, the cells start to become resistant to it. So I used to say it's like living in a complex, and you have this elderly lady, and she knocks on the door and she wants to bring you cookies, and that's great. She shows up every once in a while, and you're like, oh, you're such a sweet lady, and you're just really, really helping, and you open the door for her every time she knocks. But then you get a bunch of college kids, and they're running through the halls, and they're knocking on all the doors, and they're causing a ruckus. That's what's happening with insulin. It's knocking on the cell doors so much, so often, that the cells start to become resistant to it or stop responding to it. So not all of the cells, I'm going to take a little side trip. Not all of the cells become resistant. Three things in insulin resistance. Some cells are highly resisting it, not able to take up the energy that you're trying to get into your body. Some cells are just like got their blinders on, they don't care, and they're just doing their job regardless. Some cells are like, woohoo, party. There's extra insulin, we want it, and we're taking it in, and so they're taking in all this excess insulin. But overall, insulin is not able to deliver the energy to the cells of the body. I don't like any medications, Michael. I just don't like medications. So consistent. Now, where was I? Now I lost it. I need my tea. You guys, I'm going to mix up my tea right now. This is the tea that I drink every morning, and it helps me with my mental function and keeping my brain in order. At 60 years old, and as a woman, I've talked about this, we start to experience more cognitive decline than men do, and I really rely on the tea to help keep me in order. So we were talking about insulin resistance, and that's where it was. So thank you. See, that little distraction helped me get this back on track. when the cells aren't taking up the insulin still has to deliver the package. And so the package has to be going somewhere. And just like any good delivery driver, insulin is going to put that package in your storage unit to hold for later. And your storage unit is your fat cells. But your fat cells can only take up so much insulin or so much of this energy, because it's not really the insulin they're taking up, it's the energy. You're cutting grass. Oh my gosh. When that energy gets into the fat cells and the fat cells start to be getting overfilled, they're going to start saying, insulin, I don't want anymore. But insulin is forcing its delivery in the cells. And so the cells are like, okay, fine. And they start to dysfunction and they start leaking out free fatty acids into the bloodstream, and it's causing inflammation. But at this point, it's also causing glucose in the bloodstream to go back up. Now your glucose is rising and staying high because insulin can't deliver it to the cells. The fat cells are filled up and now they're spilling it back out, and we're just unable to get it out of the bloodstream. At this point, you might see your A1C go from like 5.7 up to like 6.3, 6.5 pre-diabetic, right? Once it hits like 7, you're diabetic, and now we have a problem. And then you let that go on even longer. Now you have Alzheimer's, or maybe even those beta cells in the pancreas start to shut down and stop producing insulin altogether because they just can't anymore. It's like constantly flipping a light switch that, and sooner or later that connection wears out. So now we have prediabetes, diabetes, Alzheimer's, or LADA happening when the pancreas has taken so much toll from having to produce so much insulin. Remember, it's supposed to be producing other hormones as well. So when we put the pancreas at risk, we start to put ourselves at risk for some of the other components that we really need in our bodies, like glucagon. That's a little bit about insulin resistance. Michael, I'm going to come back to your questions, your comments right now. So if you do celery juicing 4 cups in the morning, focused on deep sleep with magnesium glycinate malate. Okay, so I do a magnesium supplement. It's combined with chromium, magnesium, D3, and K2. And do you know that those 4 need to be combined in specific amounts for you to get the best bioavailability out of that magnesium so that you can get that restful sleep? Also, magnesium is helping with your gut. You'll know when you've taken too much magnesium. So a quick little test of magnesium is if you take, I don't know what supplement you're taking, but if you take 1 scoop at night and you wake up in the morning and you're rested, but maybe you feel like it just wasn't enough and you take 2 scoops, you up it a little bit, and the next morning you have some diarrhea. Well, that diarrhea is saying, oh, too much magnesium. It's gonna flush it out. So know that about magnesium. But now, those are all great things. Hey, Dale, what's my take on metformin? Again, I'm not a big proponent of medications. I did metformin. It caused me a lot of nausea and vomiting, and my body just hurt when I was on it. Your metformin could help with inflammation. I'm not as versed on that, but I'm going to show you something in a second that can help with your inflammation. And it really is getting your insulin resistance under control. You may have another inflammatory issue going on causing that. So yeah, looking at all the stressors is important, right? You're doing an extensive detox. Now, I was going to do a detox, you guys, at the beginning of this month because I really believe in helping our guts clear out. Again, it's going back to doing understanding that our food is imperfect. So I agree with detoxes. Yeah, so I used Unicity's detox because it's a complete detox. So we're doing an herbal that's releasing the parasites from the cell walls or releasing the toxins and stuff from the gut. And then we follow it up with a fiber that has even more herbals in it. It has like 29 different components in it that are helping sweep all of that out and clean it out. And then we end the day with an aloe tablet that's just helping to continue to move anything else out. So it's aggressive yet gentle, and it's all really healthy stuff, and it's scientifically based. I will open it up in my link tree or just message me and I'll get you a link to our detox. So it's a 3-step system and I do it right alongside the protocol that I'm going to share with you guys. You can do it for 1 month. One young lady who had really bad cystic acne did it for 3 months and her acne cleared. So inflammation in the body, a detox is a great idea. So what we're doing for insulin resistance, and then I'm going to get into this excessive sweating thing, is this. I do this tea that you guys just watched me drink. The tea is a highly purified form of yerba mate tea, not a lot of additives or anything in it. So, but why this tea? It's 375 times higher in chlorogenic acids than any standard yerba mate tea. It costs less than any pre-prepared yerba mate tea. You don't have to steep it. You don't have to do any of that, but you're getting all these components. Some of the other components, and I talked about this in the live on Friday, are like triterpenoid saponins, mate saponins, theobromine. Those are the big ones that we're going to talk about with mental health and weight loss. The tea helps reduce blood sugar levels on its own, but it also helps give you energy, mental clarity, and you're not getting crashes from it because those 4 things I talked about are called adaptogens. They help balance out the caffeine in it, so much so that the locals call the caffeine in this tea morphine, for mate caffeine, because your body responds very differently than it does to the caffeine in a coffee bean that doesn't have as much of this stuff. It has 3 times as many chlorogenic acids as coffee does. That's one of the great benefits in coffee. So 375 times more than regular yerba mate, 3 times more than coffee, and it doesn't have all the added sugars and stuff. And I just drink it twice a day. Gives me satiety, helps me not feel hungry, helps keep my blood sugars under control, is anti-inflammatory, Michael. Has a lot of anti-inflammatory, antioxidant properties in it, anti-cancer properties in it. And those are all found in, if you go back and find my video from Friday, you'll see all the properties in this tea. And I'm working, there's a blog post that I did on it. And I also have some videos here on TikTok on the tea. And thank you, Melba. The tea is called The Tea in the tab up at the top of my page on TikTok, and you'll be able to see some stuff, research like by Dr. Huberman, a video by Dr. Bickman on yerba mate. And again, this is a very highly concentrated form of yerba mate. The tea has that's why I spent a whole day talking about the tea. It has so many benefits to it. I'm tearing open my packets. So this is basically what my day looks like. 3 packets, 2 tea, 1 fiber, and that's it. So tea in the morning when I'm having hunger, when I need that mental clarity, when I need the energy boost when I wake up, because I'm 60. And yeah, your adrenals stressed from your detox. So your adrenals shouldn't get stressed from a healthy detox. They really shouldn't. They may get a little stressed, but they shouldn't be like overstressed. So tea in the morning, tea in the afternoon. Now people are questioning the tea in the afternoon. The tea in the afternoon, remember, we're compounding the effects of these components in here, anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer. It increases your own natural GLP-1, which those other diabetic drugs are trying to do by injecting exogenous GLP-1 into you, glucagon-like peptide. This is increasing it naturally in your body by 70%, up to 70%. It increases people's wellness score. So how happy they are, how less depressed they are. That's also increased by about 70% in a short study that we did. They're working on a long study now. So the tea is just amazing. But one of the big parts that I really love is fiber. This fiber, and it's the same thing as you just saw me do with the tea. So we're going to do that with the fiber, because neither one of these break my fast. And I do a 16/8 fast. I didn't tear that lid off properly. So this is 5 grams of fiber. But so people are like, so what? It's only 5 grams of fiber. Well, when we know that most of us are only getting in 10 to 16 grams of fiber a day, we should be getting in at least 30. The sweet spot is about 37. We know that most of us are going to need to supplement fiber. I talked yesterday about how 37 grams of fiber looks like about 8 heads of lettuce. And if you're doing a 16/8 and eating 2 times a day, you're going to have to eat like 4 heads of lettuce every time you sit down just to get the right amount of fiber in. But what I love about those fiber recommendations are because they were testing on a single type of fiber. This is a combination of 7 different fibers, insoluble and soluble fibers. And that's what makes the difference in whether you're doing 5 grams of fiber or whether you're doing 10 grams of fiber. Do I need to do quite as much fiber when I'm doing this as I would if I was just doing psyllium husk? No, I don't. So this twice a day for me is helping with all this good stuff we know about fiber. And it's as simple as this. Same thing. I tore the lid off the packet now, or the top off the packet. I just dump it in about this much water. The bottle comes with the system. And then I'm just going to shake this a lot less than I did for the tea. You'll see it's already starting to thicken up around the edges. That's more than enough. That was almost too much. Now I just drink this down. It tastes like an orange creamsicle or a light orange Julius. It has a light citrus flavor to it. I drink mine. I still have 2 a day because I love the effects of the fiber. I love what it's doing for my gut health. This also is helping with inflammation by getting your gut balanced out. But the primary thing that this system is made for is to reduce your blood glucose levels, your A1C. We have a 90-day money back guarantee that says if you're doing this consistently, tea in the morning, tea in the afternoon, when you're starting to have breakthrough hunger and fatigue, and a balance before your biggest, or the fiber before your biggest meal of the day, your A1C will go down. Your triglycerides will go down. Your morning blood sugar should go down. If you don't have the response from this, that your A1C hasn't gone down in 90 days, then you get your money back. How many doctors have told you if you do metformin for 90 days and you're not getting the health results you need out of it, they'll give you your money back? Mounjaro, Trulicity, some people are paying $300 to $1,300 a month for those medications. Which one of those companies ever gave you a guarantee that your health would be better in 90 days or you get your money back? None of them do it that I'm aware of, because they can't do that. How they would lose money if they did that. So it's a tea in the morning, a tea in the afternoon, and a fiber before my biggest meal of the day. And that's it. I'm comfortable with what I'm putting in my body. I'm happy about what I'm putting in my body. I actually know now that I've done so much study that I need this in my body. It's not just, ooh, do I want it? Ooh, is it working? Yes, heck yes, it's working for me, and it's worked for many people. I put a video up. That was actually my daughter that I did a video on yesterday. She talked about fatigue and whatnot. So it does help with all of that. Now let's get back to some of your questions. You guys, if you're interested in the system that helped me reverse my diabetes, my hypertension, my eyesight loss, my hair loss, my bleeding teeth and gums, losing my joints, having edema and neuropathy, all of those things, everything on this list I suffered with before I found the system. And the system is just in my profile link. If you just click on the link right below the red lights in my profile, you'll find it, and then we can get you help and get you that 90-day money back guarantee, and you'll have access to me to ask questions and whatnot. Looking at your questions. So here's the thing, you guys, with liver and kidney getting taxed cause thrush. That I'm not a doctor, so that's not my specialty. I'm assuming that it would, but I don't have a real answer for you. So Michael, I think you're new here. So what I do is, if you ask me questions and there's something I don't know, I'm more than willing to go look at it. But I'm going to tell you. So I'm going to write this down, and maybe we'll talk about it in the morning, because we're going to get to the question that was asked yesterday. And then I cover a lot of these things every week, every morning, Monday through Friday. So we understand insulin resistance. We understand that our food is imperfect. We understand our lifestyle is imperfect, and we've got to start making changes. You cannot get a change without making a change. You cannot get a destination unless you have a path. What's been happening to most of us in our healthcare is we've had no path. We don't understand why we're getting sick, so we don't know where to go, nor do the doctors. When I had all of this, it was like this explosion of, let's run this test, let's run that test, let's try this medication, let's try that medication, let's do this, let's do that. And at the core of it all was always insulin resistance. And had I ever been told about insulin resistance, I might not have had damage to my heart, lost my gallbladder, lost 3 joints, All of the other things that I talk about might never have had to happen had anyone understood and talked about insulin resistance 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Injury, inflammation can cause insulin resistance. So when we track it back and we start seeing, okay, when Misha still started really having health problems and weight problems was I got hit in the head with a 12-pound shot put and knocked my butt out when I was about 15. By the time I was like 18, 19, I was already starting to struggle with keeping my weight under control. I was having irregular periods. I was having all of the things I talk about. That injury, that excessive inflammation in my brain likely kicked off insulin resistance. So I had PCOS. I couldn't conceive. I was going to the doctor all the time crying because I wanted to have kids and I couldn't have kids. I ended up having two. But what kept me from tipping over into diabetes until I was in my late 50s was the fact that I was always so active. So all of this links in. Saw this every day in your life. So hypothyroid is very highly linked to insulin resistance as well. Um, oh, so Michael, you're bringing up so many things. This is amazing because I woke up this morning going, "What am I going to talk about?" I'll talk about the sweating thing, but maybe that's not enough. But look, sleep apnea is very highly linked to insulin resistance, and for most people, if it has to do with your tongue and your palate, maybe it's not just the placement. Maybe it's the fact that you're actually building up, visceral fat in that area. You have two types of fat on your body, subcutaneous and visceral fat. Visceral fat generally is underneath the muscle wall of the stomach, and it's brown fat, high in mitochondria, right? The subcutaneous fat is more storage. It's kind of jiggly and lumpy and bumpy, and nobody likes it, but it's not causing a ton of damage like the visceral fat is. What I didn't even know until this last year is that visceral fat doesn't just stop, because I always thought it was just like chest to gut, just chest to groin, that's where the visceral fat is. That's why your tummy starts to get out there. But that visceral fat also extends into the back of your throat and your tongue. So if you have what they call fatty tongue, which is one of the top causes of sleep apnea, I had a sleep apnea test and I was waking up 60 times an hour back in the day. They said I had fat tongue and I was fat anyway. So I was like, well, yeah, my tongue is fatty, but you're nuts. So they wanted to cut a slit in my tongue, put chemicals inside my tongue to lessen the tongue bed so that I wouldn't have the sleep apnea. A CPAP wouldn't even work on me because it just shoved the tongue back into my throat further and made me have worse problems with sleep apnea. All right, so you get the visceral fat down by getting the insulin resistance down. Visceral fat is cued in your body when this insulin is high. Your brain is starting to cue you to store that as visceral fat first, and then it starts going to subcutaneous fat. So getting the insulin under control, becoming more metabolically flexible and sensitive to insulin will help thin out the tongue bed and not have surgeries. Like I had to have my gallbladder removed. I've had to have 3 joint replacement surgeries. Thank goodness I never did that, but I don't suffer with sleep apnea anymore. So how did I go from waking up 60 times an hour to I sleep through the night? I addressed my insulin resistance. Hey, Diane, it's good to see you. Yeah, so do a tongue tie release. So if you have a tongue tie, that could also be a causator, right? Like, so insulin resistance doesn't cause every single thing, but it's very highly linked in almost every single thing, leading us to believe, me, and not that I'm at their level at all. I'm not going to make that claim, but the scientists who are studying it and the doctors who are starting to talk about insulin resistance all start to realize that insulin resistance is playing a bigger role than anyone ever thought in all of these diseases, including sleep apnea and that. Now, things that are genetic or done, like the tongue tie. My grandson had a really bad tongue tie and nobody caught it for like 5 years. It was so sad. So he still has a speech impediment because nobody caught it. So he has to relearn how to speak. Tongue ties can cause a lot of problems for sure, but that's not my specialty. Okay. So Michael, while you're on here, I'm going to encourage you to just take a look at the system. One of the things I love with the system is that it's actually produced by a company who's a science-based company and not a marketing company. So this is a marketing company. They do some products, but they're a marketing company. Do they have their own manufacturing facilities? Do they have their own scientists? We have our own scientists who are always working on ways to improve our metabolic health. This tea and the fiber are two of the ways they found. They're patented. There's over 5 different patents on this system, and it's found in the PDR, the Prescriber's Digital Reference. So this isn't just like you get on and you hear all these, like right now there's these weight loss pills, and they're talking about the fake ones and the real ones. Well, that happens with us too. People will replicate whatever. That's why I say never go on Amazon, eBay, Walmart to get it. You want to make sure you're getting it directly from our company, because you don't know if you're getting the real thing otherwise. But the big difference is most supplement companies are reaching out to manufacturers and saying, hey, we want a turmeric supplement. We want a magnesium supplement. And the company's like, okay, cool. What does your label look like? And the same thing that they're producing for everybody else is what you're getting. Maybe they add a little bit something different, but the companies don't have control of their manufacturing process. We do. We have scientists who look at it. We test it at 3 points during the process. So we test it before we even start processing it to make sure we have the right herbals, because there are some lookalikes out there that people try to pass off. So we test it. Is it the right herbal before we even start processing it? Then we test it mid-process. Then we test it before it ever goes out. So we know that what we're telling you is in this tea is in this tea. Not every supplement company does that or cares. We do. So that's a big difference. All right. Now, the question yesterday was, does overactive, or I'm going to call it excessive sweating, link to insulin resistance? Is anybody ready for that answer? And I did not get the answer. Was this person in menopause? Were they male or female? Any of that? We all know that menopause is going to cause some overreactive sweating. Insulin resistance can make that worse. And we're going to talk about how that happens. Yeah. And Ro, thank you for reminding me, Ro. The company is very progressive, but it's also been around since 1903. So we have a very solid company who's been in the space for a long time, is privately owned. And so your product isn't going to get diluted and changed drastically. And, this happens to a lot of companies. Somebody comes in and buys them, and now this amazing product gets watered down and it's sold to you at the same cost because they're just about the bottom dollar. And our company is about your health. So we're not going to have to worry about that happening. Now, the reason why I use, and I don't talk about a lot of it because I don't want people to get confused. I want everyone on this live to understand what I did for the first year to get my health back, reverse my diabetes, get my blood pressure under control, stop the sleep apnea, stop the joint pain, get rid of my skin takes and my melasma, was the system. That's it. Now, when we start looking at, okay, we've cleared away some of the insulin resistance, but we have some damage left over, we have some other things that are going on, then I start looking at things like our Bone Fortify, which is magnesium, calcium, D3 and K2 in a balanced amount that's very bioavailable, is mixed in water before I go to bed, and has a berry flavor. And in fact, when I first started the system, at times if I had hunger at night, because I was a nighttime snacker, I would use my Bone Fortify as a sweet, like it gives me that little thing on my palate and helps me feel a little fuller, and then I would fall asleep and it would be fine. The detox I use from our company. Why am I so stuck on using everything? And the protein. One of the reasons is I spent years as an athlete doing as much research as I could on companies and products because I was in a drug-tested federation. And what that means is it doesn't matter if I take a protein from like Rich Piana and there's some banned substance in it that's not listed on the label, and I get tested, which I got tested a lot, and it showed it up on my drug test at all, I would lose all of my records. I would lose all of my medals. I wouldn't be able to compete. So it was important to me, but I don't want to have to look at all of those things now every time I choose a supplement. So I choose Unicity because I've learned to understand that everything we produce is based in science. Everything we produce has that same care in testing and bioavailability. So I know if I'm using our protein, it's smooth, it's creamy, it's not chunky and chalky. And I know that our scientists have spent a good amount of time making sure that we have a protein that works. I know that they've spent a good amount of time on the detox, that it's there because every component in it has a reason to be there for our health. I also use like our Vision Essentials and vitamin C, but I stick with, if I have a choice to get a supplement from someplace, I'm going to choose this company first because I know the care they put into it. We don't have an electrolyte supplement, so you hear me talk about Element, LMNT, a lot because electrolytes are important. So I will buy from other companies, but my primary source is always this company because I've learned to trust that they care about our metabolic health. They care about what's getting to you, and that's important. All right. Whew, I get all a little inflated about that because you guys, I spent so many years like going through the stores and like which one is good and who do I trust and what do I do and how do I know what's in here is in here. And I never worry about that. I never worry about that with this company. So overactive sweating, let's get to it. Overactive sweating and insulin resistance. So there's a number of ways this is happening in our bodies. 4 big ways that insulin resistance is causing overactive sweating or excessive sweating. Melba, I'm so happy to see you here this morning. I just want to say that for a second. And Ro, I appreciate you too. Mimi. So one of the ways that's happening is low blood sugar. So we know when you're diabetic, when you're insulin resistant, sometimes what's happening is you have this spike of blood sugar. Now you have what's called hypoglycemia not long after. And why is hypoglycemia happening with insulin resistance? It's happening because we're spiking our blood sugar so high, so consistently. We've trained insulin to be high all the time. So insulin is doing its job and it's getting rid of that sugar out of the bloodstream, but maybe too much. And so now our blood sugars drop. And so typical knowledge is to add some sugar in, drink a glass of fruit juice, do whatever to get your blood sugar back up. But all you're doing is reinforcing a bad pattern. But the hypoglycemia, when your blood sugar drops after insulin has done its job, that can cause your body to elicit a fight or flight response, causing you to feel a little sweaty or be even more sweaty. Like me and my son, my daughter-in-law talks about it a lot to us. We're Native American and we just run a little hot. We sweat a little easier than some people. But insulin resistance can then exacerbate that more by causing this hypoglycemic drop and increasing cortisol and this fight or flight response. So it normally happens at night, and you see it more in people who are on metformin and these diabetic drugs because it's forcing this unnatural bounce in our metabolism. So it's not something that our body is reacting to. It's something that's being given to our body to force it to do a thing. Low blood sugars, and again, it's happening mostly at night. So you have night sweats, but it can happen during the daytime too when you overexert or your blood sugars, you be eating like a candy bar and a soda, and all of a sudden your blood sugars drop within an hour or two after because the insulin has done its job and now you have sweating. But that's what's happening there. But another way is through some nerve damage. So these high blood sugar levels and insulin, and I've talked about it a little bit before, cause a disruption in your nerve pathway signaling. So whether you call it neuropathy, whether you call it a neurodegenerative disease, whether you call it whatever, it's a nerve pathway dysfunction. So at the end of our nerve pathways are these little caps. And what's happening is we have these pathways. It's not just one long pathway. Our nerves are little short links and they have these caps on the end. The caps on the end communicate to each other. With insulin resistance, It's breaking down those caps. They can't communicate as well. Also, it's causing just a dysfunction when those caps are not communicating as well and there's a signal. It's similar. Some of those signals are going out the side, and you have this like electric nerve firing pain, neuropathy. Okay. Insulin resistance is causing this breakdown in the nerve pathways. But that nerve pathway breakdown can also cause some excessive sweating. So, those nerve pathways control how much sweat we need and when we need it. But because they're broken down, maybe you're just sweating a lot all the time, even when you're not exerting yourself. And it's a neural pathway breakdown that's causing it, linked to insulin resistance, disrupting those nerve pathways. Another way that it's happening is obesity. We've talked a little bit this morning about how insulin resistance causes us to store fat. Somebody please remind me to talk about 2 types of fat in a little bit, because I think it will answer some questions for some people. But this obesity, obviously, what's happening is it's like a big warm blanket, right? So it's causing our bodies to be a little warmer naturally. So now we combine nerve pathways that are malfunctioning. We deal with this up and down of the blood sugar, and now we have an over insulated body that's just running hot all the time because of all this insulation. Now you're going to see an increase in sweating. It can happen even if you're not having that over storage of fat. But then the last way that I'm going to talk about this morning, that insulin resistance is contributing to overactive or excessive sweating, is hormonal changes. Talked a little bit about PCOS yesterday and how androgens are first, and they get converted into estrogens and progesterone. And in women, that what happens in the ovaries. And in the ovaries, when there's a dysfunction, that because of insulin resistance, it's not, and another thing called aromatase. Let's not skip that. So insulin cues aromatase, or we have that aromatase that's helping us produce testosterone into estrogen. But this hormonal imbalance, there's a lot of hormones, leptin, ghrelin, cortisol, thyroid hormones, all of that start to get imbalanced in a number of ways when the presence of excess insulin. And those hormonal imbalances obviously are causing us to have, especially women, to have this excessive sweating, nighttime sweating. Maybe you walk up the stairs and you're out of breath and you're sweating. It still all can be linked back to insulin resistance. So we're going to recap. In high and low blood sugars, in nerve problems, in weight gain, and in hormonal dysregulation, insulin resistance is contributing to people who are feeling like they're excessively sweating. So maybe you're a person who sweats excessively anyway, but now you add insulin resistance on top of it, and now it's disrupting your whole life. So either way, get the insulin resistance under control, and you can start to control some of this excessive sweating. You have thyroid. Okay, so hypothyroid. Why don't I talk about hypothyroid tomorrow a little bit? I'm going to give you a short answer, Sarah, but I'm not going to have time to go over it in depth this morning. But hypothyroidism is highly linked to insulin resistance, and it can in many people show up as Hashimoto's, where you're having sometimes overactive thyroid and sometimes underactive thyroid. In the end, that autoimmune disease then starts to become just hypothyroid. No more are you having the hyperthyroid issues going on. We've had a number of women, including myself, who have gotten their thyroid levels under control by still addressing this this one thing called insulin resistance. And so what I would do, Linda and Sarah, is just give the system a try. You guys, I say it because I tried everything. I did the medical medium, like Michael's naturopathic doctor has given him all these things to do, right? Which is great. And I agree with the majority of what he's saying. But what if you knew that to help address insulin resistance and thereby addressing things like hypothyroidism, PCOS, sweating, joint deterioration, My issue, autism, I was going to talk about that a little bit this morning. 3 packets that you're doing at 3 points during the day. So 2 products at 3 points during the day. And you know that they're real nutrition, giving back what's been stripped out of your diet. That's where I would start. And that's what the only thing that really changed it for me. I had spreadsheets and I had this like, I got to take this here and I got to take that there. And I had pill boxes full of pills that I would take every day and I wasn't getting better. I was prescribed thyroid. I'm not on any thyroid now. And we'll talk about all of the thyroid hormones and how insulin is playing a role in those tomorrow. So thank you for giving me something to talk about tomorrow. And I'll also talk about liver, kidneys, and thrush. But we'll talk about hypothyroid and how, more in depth, how insulin resistance is causing the hypothyroid. I have a number of people who have found great success with their hypothyroidism by just doing the system. So I'm generally on, I say 8:30, but sometimes like this morning it's around 8:45. In that time frame is when I come on every day for about an hour and we discuss all these things. So Monday through Friday, you will very rarely find me live on the weekends. Eastern time. Yes, Kimberly. Thank you for reminding me to say that. So it's 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. And then we'll talk about thyroid and we'll talk about the liver and thrush. I'm not going to get into as much depth about that, but I do want to talk about thyroid tomorrow because it's such a problem. Now, I recently bought this thing called AO Scanner and I use it every day. And what it does is it scans my body to see what's out of balance because everything in our whole universe is just built on energy and waves. But through that, I've been able to see what's happening with my body and understand where I may be out of balance. The bottom line is it can tell like what supplements are most needed for the day, what, and it gives me the top 6. The thyroid that I was prescribed several months ago that's sitting in my cabinet never shows up on that, which tells me my thyroid is well under control, as well as some other symptoms. I've learned to become, and what I want for you guys is to become your own health advocates as well. Start understanding some of this stuff. Do you have to have this weird mind like mine that loves to go out and find all these answers and do all the research? No. But I want you to start to be aware of your symptoms and what's going on. And understand, though, that a majority of your symptoms can very much be linked by insulin resistance. What is it that you got to check for this? So, Mimi, I never really had anything to check for it. Like I was doing blood work. Nobody ever caught the insulin resistance part until I was already diabetic. And then by then my heart was having problems and all the things I talk about. We can go over that later. But through being diagnosed as diabetic at about 56 years old and starting this path to like, oh my gosh, my health is failing. I'm on 13 medications. Nothing is getting better. I'm trying the medical medium. I'm trying all this stuff. I'm doing all these protocols and these medications and I'm not getting better. I found the system. But what you can do to check for it, let's talk about some symptoms of insulin resistance, and that will help you. I'm going to pause. This is a two-sided story. If you have a serious health implication, obviously I want you to work with your doctor. But I want you to talk to your doctor about insulin resistance. And some of them are going to roll their eyes and go, oh crud. Then you're going to refer to doctors like Dr. Bickman, and you're going to find a doctor who's going to listen to you. But if you want to know what is going on, I'm also going to tell you that this is a lifestyle-related disorder. It does not require metformin or Trulicity or Tirzepatide or Mounjaro or any of that to cure it. You are not deficient in any of those drugs. It's not what caused you to be sick. What caused you to be sick was that our food doesn't have things like fiber and nutrients, vitamins and minerals. By the way, this has a really nice complete panel of, or almost complete panel of vitamins and minerals in it, like A, C, D, E, K. All of those are found in this as well. So what you're going to do, I'm going to give you a couple of tests that you can run, or some calculations, and they're also in my tab up here. So please go find the How to Tell tab, and you'll be able to come back to these calculations and do it for yourself if you have labs. So, all right. Now, every year you should be getting a complete metabolic panel from your doctor. So in there is going to be a lot of things. Your hormones are going to be in there. Your A1C is going to be in there. Your fasting blood glucose is going to be in there, but you're going to have a cholesterol panel as well. So the first way that we're going to tell, and this is found on the NIH's website, and it's also talked about in Dr. Bickman's book, you're going to take and find the triglycerides from your panel. You're going to find the HDL from your panel. And most people are like, well, why the HDL? The LDL is the bad thing. Because we're going to get to that in a second. What's happening with this calculation is it's telling us this balance. LDL has actually a couple of different forms of LDL. The two we're going to talk about is type A and type B. Now, type A is large and buoyant, and it kind of just bounces around your bloodstream doing its thing and not really causing a lot of problem. Type B is small and dense and tends to sink to the bottom of the blood vessels or to the sides of the blood vessels. Type B is really important. When there's damage inside the blood vessels, type B LDL goes in, sinks in, and adheres to the blood vessel wall and stops leakage in there and just kind of helps plug the gaps in the blood vessel walls. But when that balance gets out of order and we start having more LDL type B, now we have a problem because that sticky part that's sinking into the blood vessel walls is building up. And now you're starting to have blockages that can turn into plaques, that can turn into all kinds of other problems. So we want to know, is that balance in order? This triglyceride to HDL is going to tell us how out of balance that LDL A to B is, because there's no test right now for that. This is the only way they've found to do it. So you take your triglyceride number, which should be the higher of the two. Mine was like 197. Okay, so when I got sick, mine was 197. And then you're going to take the LDL. You're going to divide the triglyceride by not the LDL, the HDL, high density lipid. Okay, so you're going to take the HDL, you're going to divide the triglyceride by it. Now, what you should have is something that's below 1.5. Because there's been such a focus on insulin resistance, doctors are now saying, oh, hey, well, maybe we need to be saying 1 to make sure that people are really healthy from insulin resistance. So if your number is anything above 1.5, you're probably having an insulin resistant problem, and we need to address that. So 3 or above, you have a big problem and you want to start addressing it. Good morning, Jamie. And how I addressed mine, again, was just this simple system that I've been talking about. So that's one calculation. Another calculation, you're going to have to ask your doctor for another test on your complete metabolic panel, and that's a HOMA-IR. So homeostatic model of assessment, insulin resistance. It's going to cost about $30 more. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take your blood sugars multiplied by your HOMA-IR and then divide it by like 407. And it's a similar thing. You want a number that's like 1.5 or less, anything higher than that, and it's going to tell you you're insulin resistant. But better yet, if you don't have any of those, if you don't have a complete metabolic panel that you can refer to, do you need to go to a doctor? Do you have to go to a doctor to have a test? No, you don't. Let's talk about some symptoms of insulin resistance. And that may help you understand why this system is so important to so many people. Number one, outside of those, this is still a medical way. So if you have a blood pressure that's 130 over 80 or higher, and it's consistently 130 or over 80 or higher, you're most likely insulin resistant. 95% of all hypertension is linked back to insulin resistance. And so that's how I got my blood pressure under control. From going from 180 over 150 at some point every day to now I wake up in the morning, it's like 112 over 74 at 60 years old as a bigger woman. No medications. This is all I've done is this fiber and this tea. That's it. That's how my blood pressure got under control, because I didn't know it back then, but what I was really doing was addressing my insulin resistance. That's why I'm here talking about it. So that's way one. Now, a couple of other physical ways that you can tell that you're insulin resistant I'm going to go over. So Jamie says, I love your system. It reversed his diabetes, obesity, psoriasis and IBS. And you guys, I have not done a psoriasis and eczema talk for a while, but through neuropathy and vascularity and all this stuff, insulin resistance very much links to psoriasis. So all of these things up here, how did I get better from all of them? Just this one simple system, and ditched 13 medications. It was just getting my insulin resistance under control. Fiber before I eat anything, and a tea that I have twice a day. Apparently, psoriasis does come from poor gut health. That's one of the drivers as well, because the inflammation in the gut is causing that psoriasis in a number of ways. We can talk about that on another one. But what I want you guys to understand is that the big thing here is gut and inflammation. So insulin resistance is bidirectional, meaning if one thing gets worse, it makes insulin resistance worse. If insulin resistance gets worse, it makes the other thing get worse. And psoriasis is one of those things, as well as gut health. So the system fixes gut health and all his lifelong ailments disappeared. And that's what I've been talking about, Jamie. Like everything on this list, and this is only a partial list of what I was suffering with that doctors were not able to help me with before the system. Everything there is all the things that I've been overcoming with in the last 3 years with this system. And so it reversed my diabetes and my hypertension. I no longer have joint replacement things going on. My teeth and gums aren't bleeding. My eyesight got better. My hair started growing in. My dark skin patches went away, and my skin tags went away. So there was a lot there. But this other couple of top indicators for me that you may be insulin resistant and could address it with this are these. So we talked about high blood pressure. In women, it's going to be PCOS. In men, it's going to be erectile dysfunction. Both of those are now, Dr. Bickman says he wishes they would just rename them as metabolic infertility, because it all links back to this insulin problem. And that can be addressed and has been addressed in a number of men with erectile dysfunction. Their testosterone levels have gotten back to normal range. Their erectile function is back, and so their relationships are better. But all they did was this, like Jamie and I did. This is all they did was a pre-meal drink before they have their meal, and a tea that I have twice a day. That helped with the erectile dysfunction. PCOS, we just went over that the other day, and why all of this is linked to insulin resistance. We have a number of women who are saying they were told they wouldn't have kids, or they couldn't have kids, and they had painful and extended periods and whatnot within a couple of months on the system. One of them, my favorite story, was a young woman who was very insulin resistant and didn't know it, had PCOS, didn't understood that. But when you go to a doctor about PCOS, they don't tell you, get your insulin resistance under control. They just tell you, take metformin or whatever. But this woman said that her first month, after 1 month of the fiber and the tea, she started having normal periods. Second month, her period was normal. Third month, no period. Now she's despondent and upset. Like, I thought this was working. It was doing so well. I had better periods. I had, better mood. I had less of the acne and the mood swings and all of that stuff. And now why is it different? Well, lo and behold, she was pregnant. A woman who was told she would likely never have kids, 3 months on the system addressing insulin resistance and thereby her PCOS, and she's pregnant. So the drinks are in my bio. And you guys, I protect it a little bit because I'm protecting you. All right. So I have dealt with so many people who've gone to Amazon, eBay, Walmart and bought because they're like, I'm going to get it cheaper. I'm going to get it quicker. One guy thought he was getting it a little bit cheaper. And what I found out was that all he got was 1 box of the pre-meal drink. He didn't get any of the tea, and he spent almost as much as the entire system cost. Now, we found pirated product. We found expired product. And you don't get any of the guarantees when you buy from Amazon, eBay, Walmart, because our company is very protective of that. They want a good name around this. So we don't have any authorized distributors in those places. Every single person who contacts me and says, I bought it on Amazon, most of them have ended up paying about $100 a month more, not getting coaching, not getting guarantees, not getting any of that. So just use my link, and right in my link, it says the system that I used. You'll click on that. It'll take you right to the products. And it's a simple thing. You get a choice between lemon and lemon ginger on the tea. You can get 1 box of lemon, 1 box of lemon ginger. You can get 2 lemon ginger. You can get 2 lemon, whatever you want. However, they give you that option for the 2 tea that you're going to get in a day. So 60 of the tea in a month, 30 of the pre-meal drink in a month. You just make that selection, order it. Once you put in your information, that retail price that's showing will drop down to the member price. You don't have to do anything for member, but put in your information. And then the last thing is, I would say, put it on subscription. Because why? The subscription saves you $20 to $25 a month on the product. And here's how. When you put it on subscription, we're not charging you shipping. Shipping used to be right at $10. Today's world, inflation, I've seen it run from $10 to $15. So $10 to $15 savings because you're not paying for the shipping. And then we give you a $10 discount on the system itself by putting it on subscription. Now, the cool thing is the subscription isn't one of those, oh, well, I'm agreeing to do this for 6 months, although I highly recommend that you do. You get it and you're like, oh, my life changed and I really, can't do this, or I want to change something about the subscription, or I want to add that Bone Fortify. You can go in and change that. And the company sends you an email 5 days before your new subscription goes out so you can make any changes you want. Do you need to delay the order? Or if you want to get it in sooner, you can go change the date and get another system in sooner. Yeah, Mimi, and when you get it tomorrow, I will see that come through, and then I'm going to start sending you some texts. Okay. So then you'll have a way to get a hold of me consistently. If you need questions answered, you just let me know, and I will do my best to help you. It's totally risk-free, the only consumable product in the world with a 90-day money-back guarantee. And we talked about that a little bit earlier, but Jamie, thanks for bringing it up again, because we talked about like these metformin and Monjaro, or some of these other products from other companies that are claiming, like, how many times you go buy a bottle of berberine and they say in 90 days, if this doesn't fix your diabetes or doesn't reduce your A1C, we're going to give you your money back. I have never seen it. And I've done so many things for my health that it's insane. Because I used to have a counter full of stuff, spinach and lemons and ginger and garlic and cayenne pepper and cinnamon and black seed oil and kelp and blue wild frozen blueberries and all of this stuff, and a big old Ninja blender that every morning I'd wake up and I'm shoving all this stuff in the blender and making this thick green thing, and it was okay till I put black seed oil in it, and I'm drinking it every day as consistently as I did this. And in 90 days of doing all of that, running to the store every couple of days to replenish the supplies of all of that stuff, I never saw the reduction in A1C that I saw with this. And it was so freeing, because I was working for Lyft and Uber when I started the system, meaning I was out for about 10 to 12 hours a day. Now, how am I going to have all of that stuff to mix and pack and 8 heads of lettuce to take with me in the car? I didn't. You know what I had? I had a bottle, I had some water, and I had my packets. Now, if I got really hungry and I couldn't stop, I would just have a fiber, because I've talked about the fiber. I love it so much, and you really only have to do 1 packet a day, but I use it for a number of things. And look at how thick that is now. You don't see that happening from this, and I'll do a video on that later, but see how that is thickening up? That is what's capturing your carbohydrates and your blood sugars and slowing them down from being absorbed in your system. The fiber is the only one of its kind on the market. In fact, we had some companies who tried to replicate this fiber, and they said they would have to charge $400 to $500 a month just for the fiber part. And they couldn't get the formulation the same as ours anyway. There's patents on this. So there's a big difference between something that's clinically and scientifically studied and patented than this, okay? You actually got it from another person. And that's fine. You guys, there's a number of us out there. So you as long as you're getting your health back, make sure that you're getting the right product and that you're getting the coaching and whatever you need. Okay. So, and I'm going to go back to that one more time. This whole 90-day money back guarantee is important, but I also want to say this. please, please, if you're going to do this, understand that it's real food that's filling in gaps, that's giving you your health back, but scientifically, clinically proven in the prescriber's digital reference because it has so much science behind it. But you got to give it 90 days. Okay. If you're in this and saying, oh, I'm just going to do 30 days, and if it doesn't work, I'm going to quit, then you've just quit on yourself. You haven't given your body enough time to heal. Look, I'm 60 years old, and I mentioned that we think that the insulin resistance started at about 15 when I got hit in the head with the shot put and got worse as my diet got worse. That's 40 years of damage to my body. That 40 years of damage, I can't expect to be gone in 30 days. Okay. So do the system for 90 days. If you're not seeing the results you want in the 90 days, then utilize the money back guarantee. But don't do it for 30 days and think my whole world's going to change. It may, but your body may be needing more support. And so give it the 90 days. If you can't commit to that, then you're probably wasting your time and money. So you have to have a commitment to your health and understand that even medications take a while to start causing benefit in your body if they're causing benefit. All right, so you guys, where was I? I lost myself, but it's as simple as, and you just get it in my profile. I'm going to type the link in over here on Facebook, YouTube right now. My electronics are all going haywire. Okay, so a tea in the morning, a tea in the afternoon, and a pre-meal drink before you have your biggest meal, and it is guaranteed to reduce your A1C. That was where I was going to go. We're so confident in it now that we now have a A1C test. So you're like, okay, I want to know, is it working? But I want to run to my doctor. I don't want to do whatever. We've worked with the lab and we now have an A1C test right in the website. If you need to know where to find it, let me know. I think it's like $45. And what they do is they give you a test that you run right when you start the system, see where your A1C is. A1C is a cumulative 3-month period snapshot of your blood sugar. So don't do it in a week. Don't do it in a month. You got to wait 3 months to see from the time you started till that 3-month period, how have your blood sugars really changed? Okay. $45. The first one you send in, at 90 days, you send in the second one. You have your answer on your A1C without a trip to the doctor and all that stuff. $45. We can do that too. Yeah, you don't have to take so many supplements. I don't. I still have a drawer full. Like my mom did doTERRA, so she sent me a bunch of doTERRA and all that stuff. I still have all of that stuff because I just have a hard time letting go of anything that I perceive as healthy, but I don't have to take in all of that. On a daily basis, this is all I do. These 3 packets, 3 drinks. And by the way, the tea, especially it's summertime now, it's hot, time out in the pool, time out in the park. This tea on ice is so soothing and relieving, gives me energy. My 7-year-old grandson is sitting out there waiting for his nana to come spend time with him. How do I have energy to deal with this little boy who triggers every one of my autistic buttons, still stay sane and keep up with him? I drink this tea. I'll finish this now. I'll go play with him. We'll go to the pool in a little while. I'll take a tea with me out to the pool. It's not soda pop destroying my body and causing more inflammation and causing more cravings. You guys, those sugary drinks, even the ones that have fake sugar in them, are causing a spike in your hunger. This does the opposite. It shuts your hunger down. So now you're not experiencing that hunger. What better way when you're trying to control your hunger than to just drink the tea that tastes like a lemon iced tea, and it's amazing. So there's that. Okay. So you're having a grandson and he will be born in July. My grandson was born in July, so he's actually heading back. I'm heading back west at the end, not at the end of this week, to go see my mom. I'm going to visit Spokane, Washington. I'm going to go to Libby, Montana. I'm going to stop at my hometown, Bonners Ferry, and up in northern Idaho. We're going to make a little trek. I'm going to do the best I can to help my mom for a week. Now, look, I'm 60. I've had 20 broken bones. I have the propensity to have a lot of pain. How do I manage it and not be on NSAIDs all day and all that? The same thing. This system keeps the inflammation down, keeps my energy high, and keeps my insulin resistance, which is causing all of this stuff, at bay so that I can be healthy and natural. Now, if I was to go to a doctor today and they did my health history and I left out the part that I was ever diagnosed as diabetic, they would never know I was diabetic. My blood sugars are all in control. My A1C is like 5.3. My triglycerides are below 100. My HDL is above 50. They would look at me and be like, wow, you're healthy. What do you do at 60 years old to stay so healthy in all these numbers? This is all I did, you guys. Not medications, not pills, not crazy stuff. A tea and a fiber. And it's I cannot say enough about it. So you have fibromyalgia too. Fibromyalgia is highly linked to insulin resistance as well. Okay. Now there can be some spinal injury that cause fibromyalgia, but I talked a little bit about in sweating how it's causing nerve damage and it's causing neuropathy and whatnot. Fibromyalgia is like body-wide neuropathy. Get those nerve endings firing properly by getting rid of the excess insulin, which means getting rid of the excess sugars, and you can see some relief with your fibromyalgia through addressing you have bad scoliosis. So that's interesting, and that's going to cause some fibromyalgia for sure, right? But what I want to talk about with that is what I'm going to invite you to understand is if we can take those diseases and disorders, injuries, breaks, whatever, I've broken my leg, I've tore off my thumb, I've broken my arm, I've whatever. Can this system fix those? No, it's not going to fix that. But when I look at the fact that insulin resistance is causing so much inflammation, nerve problems, and pain in my body, can I help me feel better from those things that I can't change? Absolutely. The system does all of that for you by addressing insulin resistance. And I want to be careful to say that it's not, well, I'm not claiming that it's going to cure anything. I'm saying that it's going to address your insulin resistance. And by addressing that, you can see benefit from all the other stuff. Just had neck surgery and fusion and neck plate, and you're doing good. Good. Yeah, scoliosis is not fun. I um have borderline spina bifida, which is in the same area as the scoliosis. And so yeah, you want your nerve endings and stuff working properly. I hope I would love to hear how the system does for you. And I would love to get a story from you when you are feeling better. By the way, I've had people with weird things like ankylosing spondylitis who come back and said their doctor said it's in remission after years of trying after they started the system. Just all kinds of things across the board. Here comes my grandson. He's saying, Nana, it's time. You can come in, buddy. Come on in. You're coming. So you guys, that's my cue. It's been a little over an hour. This guy right here, this guy, this is my guy, the love of my life, and he's needing my time today. So I'm going to go give him some time, and then I'll be back in the morning, and we'll talk some more about hypothyroid and how the system is helping with even that. Plantar fasciitis went away. That's interesting. You know what, Mimi? Thank you for bringing that up because I had really bad plantar fasciitis, and it would hurt to walk. And that's not one I've looked at before, but now that you say it, I'm thinking I don't have that pain that I had before from plantar fasciitis. So that's a place for me to go look at and see what's happening. I am. We're gonna go play some video games. We're gonna go to the pool. What did you have for breakfast? What did you have? Chocolate chip pancakes. And by the way, he has the tea, or not the tea, but he has the fiber as well because it helps him dealing with the fats in his body.
But
so
I drink half of it.
Yeah, he doesn't drink the full packet like I drink. He only drinks a half a packet because he's a littler body. But he even drinks this for his genetic disorder to help him in managing fats that his body can't do. So it's doing great things for multiples of people. We'll see you guys in the morning. We'll talk about hypothyroid. We'll answer some more questions. I appreciate your time and your input in this live. And you know what? If we can change even a couple of lives, I'm super happy. But the goal is to change 1 million lives, because there's billions of people in this world, and 93% of us are suffering. We have a big job to do. All right, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Oh, and I forgot to send the link. So there's the link, you guys. Just check the link out. There's a way to get a hold of me in there. If you have questions, just let me know. I'm more than happy to answer, and let's get